What's up everyone, Steven here from Techmaker.tv. In this episode I'm going to show you how to build out a simple project management app with Ruby on Rails 6. If you've been following along with our channel, you'll notice that we've been kicking off a whole bunch of new series. So this episode is actually the first part, and it's going to lay the foundation for a bunch of other episodes. So if you want to stay up to date, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and also go check out our website, techmaker.tv. We're posting a bunch more work session type stuff over there so that you can see the full front to back development of projects. On YouTube, we're going to be posting some of that, and we're going to be posting more standalone content that we managed to pull out of those larger projects. With all of that said, let me show you what we're going to be building, and then let's jump into the coding project from the very beginning. So this is the app that I put together today. Essentially, you have projects, they have a status, you can see how complete they are. You can click into these things and you can see your different tasks that you have to do. You can come in here and edit and say that it's actually in progress, and now you're going to see that this changes. In the next episode, we're going to be adding some drag and drop stuff. I've got some ideas for how to add real-time functionality to this once you have a team, so that if somebody changes the title or potentially leaves a comment or something like that, that it's all very interactive. But with all of that said, this is kind of the basic framework for this project. I'm going to go ahead and post the code for this on GitHub and link to it down in the description. So if you want to pull that down and look at it there, feel free. Obviously, it's great if you code along. There's a lot of styling in this project, so the first 20 minutes are about setting up the structure, so maybe you can follow along with that. And then if you want to copy in some HTML or something at some point, just check out the GitHub. With all of that said, let's go ahead and just jump in. To get things going, I'm just going to create a new Rails app, Rails new, and I'm going to call it Simple PM for Simple Project Management. So we'll let this run, and then I'll pause the video for a second. So with that done, let's change down into our Simple PM directory, and let's go ahead and open up the code base. So with this open, I'm going to open up my gem file, and I'm going to add a couple of gems here really quick. So I'm going to add a gem devise, which is for authentication, and then I'm going to add another one that you may have not seen before called nested scaffold, which is going to make our lives a little bit easier. So we'll go back over to our terminal and we will bundle, and this again will take just a second. Okay, so that's done. Okay, so we want to create a user that can log in. So let's do this. So let's say Rails G devise install, which is going to set a few things up that devise needs in order for us to actually create users, and it's going to give us some instructions. So let's just follow these instructions, and I've done this a million times, so I'm just going to go through and follow them, copy this into development RB. So we'll open up development RB and just put this down here. That's good. Let's go to the second step. So we need to set up a root directory. So we'll have, let's go ahead and go to our routes. That's not what I wanted to do. And we'll go ahead and just paste this, but we don't want home index. Let's call this root to projects index, like that. Okay, so that should be taken care of. Then in our layouts application, we need to paste these things. Okay, so we'll just put these right above the yield tag. And this fourth step should be optional. So we'll just leave that alone. We're going to let the devise views be the devise views for now. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. Why not, right? So now we have all the devise views, so we can modify those later if we want to. Okay, so now what we can do is say Rails G devise user. So this is going to create a model for us, and it's also going to have the devise for users in the routes and use all of the various devise controllers and stuff. So all of our authentication is set up once we do Rails DB migrate, and this should take just a second. Okay, so let's get going with our actual projects. And so we installed that nested scaffold gem, and we'll use that in just a second. But first, let's do Rails G scaffold. And I'm going to create a scaffold for projects. So Rails G scaffold project. We're definitely going to have project names, and I think we'll have a description, which should be text. And we'll just run that. Actually, let me. I'm going to undo that because the project also needs to belong to a user. So we'll Rails G and do all that stuff again, and then I'm just going to say user references. So that will set up a user ID and an index on our projects, which we'll look at in just a second. Next, let's do this. Let's say Rails G nested scaffold. And I'm going to create a new object called task. But in actual fact, what I need to do is say project task. And so what this is going to do is it's going to say that the task belongs to the project, and it actually will set everything up for us in terms of the views and the controller and everything, so that we don't actually have to go manually make all those little changes. So if you're totally new to Rails, this may be a little bit foreign to you, but if you've done a little bit of Rails work, you'll kind of see how quick this makes things. So I'm going to have a title for my tasks, or just maybe a name, and then a description, and then we'll also say, we'll make that text, and then we want a status. So I'm going to have a status of not started, in progress, and complete. And then finally, we need to say project references. And so this will generate a bunch more stuff, and then we'll Rails DB migrate. And again, this should hopefully just take a quick second, and then I'm actually just going to go ahead and start my server. And so let's go ahead and go take a look at the browser. And this is the nested scaffold documentation, by the way. So if you want to read up on that, that's pretty handy. But let's go to the localhost and kind of just see where we are. So we have projects here. We can create a new project, project 1. We're not going to be able to create a project because this user is required and we haven't created a user yet. So let's do this. Let's go over to our code. Let's open up our projects controller. And let's just say, before we do anything, let's say before action, authenticate user. And let's copy this and let's do the same thing over on our tasks controller. Okay, so we'll save both of these and let's go back and let's refresh. And the first thing it's going to do here is say we have to sign up. So when we have a login screen by default, and then we can click down here to sign up. So I'm going to sign up with Steven at Techmaker.tv, and then just give it a password, and we will register. So now we're able to look at projects. So if we click into this, we really don't want to have a field for the user. So let's go over to our projects form, and let's get rid of this user ID field right here. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Alright, so now we're just creating a project with a name and a description, but this is also going to have a problem because what we need to do in our projects controller, and as well in our actual user class, so inside of our user, we need to tell it that it has many projects. So in our project class, because we set it references user, it automatically sets up a belongs to. But we need to add the has many on user. That's just how Rails is set up. So what we want to do is the index. So everything in here, what we want to do is like scope it to the user. So instead of doing project.all, I just want to see the logged in users project. So we'll say current user.projects. This next one on new, we'll say current user.projects.build, I think. We'll copy this on the create, so we'll say current user.projects.build with the params. And on the rest of them, we can actually change it down here. So we can say current user.projects.find. One other quick thing we want to do is get rid of this user ID. We don't want to allow the user ID to get passed in. So let's go try to create a project now. So if I go back, I don't have any projects. There's no projects existing right now, so we can actually just say project 1. This is going to be a great project. So we'll create this project, and then if we go back, we'll have the index page with the name and description and saying our user ID is 1. Okay, so the projects work. So let's check out how we can look at tasks. So the handiness of that nested scaffolds thing is that it goes ahead and sets up all the routes and everything properly, so that we can actually look in here and see that if we go to project/ID, in this case 1/tasks, we get to tasks here. So if I click new task, you can see that we have the same kind of problem down here where we have the project showing up in the form. And so I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. So I'm going to close these files. If you're using Atom, I'm always using this Command T on Mac, quick shortcut. So now you can search for the name of the file. Otherwise, you can obviously find it in the file tree on the left. But what we can do is say tasks, form, and then right here you can just click enter and it's going to open this file. So I'm going to get rid of this. So this is what we don't want. And then if we look at our controller, so let's go to the tasks controller. If we look at all of these, so we have, first of all, we're authenticating the user, then we're setting the project. So let's check out set project. So we want to do the same thing in set project. We want to add our security layer. So when we find the project, we say current user.projects.find. But then after that, everything should work just perfectly fine. So we set the project, and then let's look at the index. So the tasks are at project.task and so on and so forth. So essentially that gem sets up all of our forms properly and all of our scoping and all of our routes properly. So it saves you a good amount of time. So let's go back over here and let's create a task. So let's create a task like do the dishes, and then you should really do the dishes. Not really going to get too much into this, and then not started. And actually, we'll deal with that in a second. So if we create this, let's go back. So now we can look at this and we can see that we have our tasks. And what's nice about this is actually scoped under this project. What I would like to do, though, is actually put this whole bit onto the project show page. So if you think about it, what you would probably like to have happen is you click on a project, and on this page you see all of the tasks that need to happen. So we'll worry about styling momentarily, but for the moment I want to go ahead and get the pages all to be architected how I want. So I'm going to close these down again. Let's go to the let's go to projects show. Let's open that, and then let's open up tasks index. So the nice thing is these are already pretty much organized based on what we need. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to put an HR tag just to put a separator, and I'm just going to paste everything in. The one thing I'm going to need to do is say at projects.tasks like this, and now you can see in here that everything, actually what we need to do right here, new project task, we'll just need to change this to be at project ID right here. So I don't know why my syntax is highlighting. I still haven't taken the time to fix that. So if you've been watching this for a little while, you've noticed I've probably been complaining about it for a while. So anyway, I'll fix it eventually. So now let's see what this does. So if I go show, if I go back up here, edit. So really now we've got this all in place. What I would like to do in addition to this is, and I'm going to add another HR tag right here. Again, we'll style this up in just a little while. What I want to do now is open up my tasks form. Actually, let's do new. I guess what we could do is, well, let's copy the top two lines here and come down in here and just add this like this, and then we need to say render tasks form, and then what I'll need to do is in my controller, I'll need to go to my projects controller, and in show I'll need to add a @task equals project.tasks.build, something like this. Okay, so then what we can do, let's refresh this and see what happens. So no route matches edit. Okay. Oh, okay, so it looks like, so what we did by adding this task in this manner is now this is going to be included in the @project.tasks. So I'm going to just make a quick thing here where I say if task.persisted, and then we'll print it out here, because otherwise it's trying to render something that's not saved to the database yet, and with edit and destroy paths and so on. So that's not going to work. So let's refresh. Now this should work. So let's try to create from here and see what happens. So we try to create a new task, and we say that the task is do your homework. Description is homework. Create the task, and then let's go back to project/1. And so now you have this. So what I would like to actually do is in my tasks controller, I want to update I want to redirect to the task project in actual fact. And I don't really want to have the notice because it's going to be obvious that it's just being added to the page in this context. So let's just come back over here, refresh, and then do another task, another one. And you can just see that it gets appended straight below. Okay, so let's deal with the status now. So let's go over here and let's open up our task class, and let's look at how we can do this. So we're going to say validates status, and then we're going to say inclusion, and then what we want is to say that it's in one of these. So we want it to be not started, in progress, or let's see, what else, complete. And we can actually try to decide if that's the best way to do it, or if we should do like lowercase kind of stuff. Maybe what I want to do is actually this. I want to say not started, and then in progress and complete. Okay, and now what we need to do is in our, I guess we're in projects. Well, no, it's, what is it? Tasks form. So right now we just have a text field. We want to switch for a select. So what I want to do here is just say f.select, but then we have to give it options. And so instead of writing out some kind of complicated data structure here in the view, what I'm actually going to do is say task and then status options. So then we'll go over to our task and we'll define a constant for status options. And then what I'm going to do is say it like this. So the argument that that method on the front end takes is something like, I may get this backwards, so I may have to come back and change a couple of things, but I believe it goes like this. So we're going to provide first what we want to display on the actual select field, and then the value, and then basically so we have this kind of nested array like this. And so I'm going to put these on their own line so they're easier to read. And then what I'll do is just change them all. So we'll have in progress and in progress, in quotes obviously, and then complete. Okay, so let's save that. Let's make sure we saved our form, and then let's go refresh and see what we get. So you can see here, now it's telling us that we have basically our status is showing up here. So what we can do now is actually start adding tasks, and we can set the status here, and then we'll have not started there, and then when we want to actually complete a task or set it in progress or something, we can update it. So when we update, we also want to go back to the actual page or the project page. So we'll go to tasks controller, do the same thing we did above, so we'll redirect to this page, and we'll also not give a notice in this case. Okay, so let's go back to this again. We'll say, okay, now it's complete. And so now we have a completed project. And I'm going to go ahead and just delete all of these because, and you can see that delete is actually taking me to the wrong place too. So we really just want to go to the project URL. In actual fact, we can just go to add project, right? So let's try this again, and we'll go ahead and destroy. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so now we kind of have everything baked in here. The only thing you might want to do differently is add it so that once we have a, first of all, we don't need the link to new task. We'll get rid of that in a second, but we'll just add a new task here. So now everything can kind of happen from here except for edit maybe. So we can just leave that for now, but that's basically what it is. So we do have some links we might want to fix, like that kind of goes to a different, like a weird place. But anyway, we'll deal with all these things in just a second. So it's not pretty necessarily at the moment, but we've gotten the majority of the functionality in place that we need to start keeping basic track of projects and tasks, at least for an individual user. We'll add teams and whatnot in the future, but for now this is basically what I was wanting to get done on the functionality side. I'm going to take about 5 or 10 minutes and start adding some styles. And to do that, let's first go set up at least a way to actually use style sheets. So let's go into our JavaScript, and I'm going to use the Webpacker variation on this idea. So we'll create a new folder inside of our JavaScript directory inside of app, and I'm just going to call it style sheets. And in here, we'll create a new file, application.scss, and then inside of our JavaScript, we will import, I think it should be /style sheets /application, like that. And then inside of here, I always, not always, but typically we'll create a style sheet called like base.scss. We'll import base. I think that might need to be /base. We'll try it like that. So let's see if we've got all this set up right. So what I'm going to do is just set the body tag and have a background color of kind of a light gray. Okay, so let's make sure we got everything saved and see what errors I've managed to create. Okay, it's spinning. Let's see if we don't have any errors. It's actually kind of hard to tell. But yeah, the background color is in fact what we wanted, so now we have style sheets set up. Okay, that's good. Okay, so for the rest of this, I do want to use Bootstrap, but I just want the style sheets. So I'm going to go to this Bootstrap CDN and just copy the CSS link here. And then let's go over to our application.html. One thing I actually need to do also is change this to style sheet pack tag. For some reason, the style sheet link tag still works on localhost, but that won't work if you deploy this somewhere without that, so make that change. And then we'll need to link style sheet, and then we'll just paste in our href that we copied. The other thing we're going to need to do, so let's go refresh and just see what's changed. So now you'll see we'll get the Bootstrap font and whatnot. So let's go up here to our assets, style sheets, and let's delete this. Well, let's delete all of these actually. Well, actually, the only one I want to worry about, because I don't want to sit here and take up too much time, is just the scaffolds, but you don't need any of those style sheets. So let's refresh, and you shouldn't see anything different in actual fact, but anyway, so what I want to start by doing is coming in here and adding a div with a class of container, and then going like this and just putting everything in a container. That should bump everything kind of to the middle of the screen. Okay, so let's see. So let's just kind of start from the top and work our way down. Inside the container, I'm going to put a card. Okay, so this is a Bootstrap thing. I don't really want the notices in there, honestly, in the card. I just want the main content in there. And then additionally, I want to add a padding 5 to the top of the container. So PT5. So again, this is Bootstrap stuff, but this is just going to bump everything down. So you'll see now that we have this card sitting here. It looks kind of like we got a piece of paper sitting on the screen, or it's going to look like that once we get this built out. And then, so if we just kind of click around, you'll see that we have this going on. So that's kind of what I wanted, so that's a good start. Okay, what's next? So I want to go work on the project's index and change up how this looks. So and we're going to make pretty heavy use of Bootstrap, so if you're totally new to Bootstrap, just feel free to follow along, and hopefully it'll make some sense. But let's go to the project's index. So we've got everything inside of a card, which is great. I'm going to make this an H2, and then I'm going to make this a class of card title. So let's see what that looks like. It's a little smaller. What I want to do here is actually say deflex, and then I want to say justify between. I might need another word in there. I might need to be justify content. I'll have to check on that. Then what I need to do is add a span tag around projects so that it's actually its own HTML element. Then I'm going to copy this link to new project, or cut it rather, and put that inside of here, and then give it a class of btn primary. And let's see what this does. So now you can see that essentially what that did is we're using flex to split and put the project's headline over here and then the actual button on the right side. So there's no floating or anything happening there. Then I'm going to do an HR tag. Actually, you know what I should have done is probably, if I go back to my application.html, what I should probably do is not put the card in the, I should probably put the card in the the view code, not the layout code. That's going to help me. First of all, or not first of all, I keep saying that repeatedly, so it's clearly not the first time. Anyway, so what we need to do is get rid of this notice because we already have the notice above. So then I'm going to say div card here, and I'm going to bump this up in there, and I'm going to say div, I think it's card header. Let's try this. See what this looks like. And then right here we would say div card body, and then put everything else in there. So let's give that a try. Okay, so I don't love that gray background, but that kind of creates this segment. And actually, I don't like the way that looks, so let's just get rid of the header here, get rid of this div, and then move this div up to the top. We'll stick with this. We'll just work on the positioning a little bit in a little while. Alright, so what can we do next? Let's look at this H2. So I want to bump down the stuff below it a little bit, so I'll say MB4, something like that. And instead of a table, what I want to do is render each project in its own little card. So we'll just do that in place here. And let's see what that can look like. So we'll say for each one of these, we're going to say div card, and then another card body. And actually what I want to do is link to the whole card. So we'll say link to project do. So if you want to just create a regular link, you need to do what we've done down here, what was automatically generated. So link to some text and then give it the link you want to go to. But if you want to actually just link to an element, you have to do this where you pass in the HTML as a block with the do there. So right here what we can do is say like h5 class equals card title, and then we'll say like project.name, something like that, and then let's go refresh and see what this looks like. Okay, so this is sort of what I'm imagining here. Then under this we can say project.description, and let's just kind of cut it off there. We don't need to be able to do all the edit and destroy stuff at this level, in my opinion. We can do that on the show page, which makes a little more sense to me in this particular context. So let's refresh this, and now this is what we got. So in here, we can actually, well, we can't destroy in here, so we'll need to add that. Yeah, this is kind of confusing. But at least for now, we've got this page out here. Okay, so let's clean up this project show now. All right, so let's go over here to the code, open up projects show. All right, so we have right now, this is split up into several sections, or 3 sections. So we don't need the notice because we already have that in the layout file. I'm gonna do the same thing because I want to basically have this kind of look across the app. So we'll say card, body. Alright, so I'm gonna do the same little thing I did on my projects index. I'm gonna paste this in here. Instead of saying projects, I want to say at project.name. And then on the right side, I'm gonna say new task, or maybe add task. No, I don't even need that, right? I don't need that because actually, let's go back and look at this really quick. So we have our form just straight up on the page. So what I want to have on here is actually the edit, and I'm also going to want the delete. So I'm going to say, just give it a div, and then in this div, I'm going to add the edit, like this, and I'm going to give this class btn warning. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to undo a little bit so that I get my links to my delete and whatnot. Copy all this, redo all the work, paste in that. I need to change this to @project. And then I'm going to give this a class of btn danger. And let's go see what this looks like if I refresh. So that looks pretty cool, actually. So that's basically what I want. Okay, then underneath the H2, so we've already got our MB4 on there, giving us some space. So now let's render the form. So let's copy this stuff, or cut it rather. And I'm going to make this an H6, like that, so it's kind of small. And then I'm going to say add task. And let's see what this looks like. So what I want to do is put this into a inline form so that it goes straight across the page. So if we go over to the Bootstrap docs and search for inline form, should have clicked that jump to inline form. So here we can say that we have this class form inline, and then we need to put form group on everything. So let's just go try this really quick. So we go to our task form. So I wonder if I can do this class form inline. Is that right? That's what they called that, form inline. So then let's refresh and see what this does to our HTML. So right here, I've got a class of new task, so that did not work. Okay, so I think that what I need to do here is actually add an HTML in front of this, like this. Maybe. Let's see what this does. Okay, so now you see that Bootstrap is trying to put all this stuff up on a single line. So now let's fix the HTML so that works. Also, before we get too carried away, I don't think that it's really necessary for us to actually have all these fields here. I think it might make more sense just to have the name, and then you can edit the rest of this stuff. That way you can kind of quickly toss in tasks and then modify them after. So I'm going to try to do that, and in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and copy everything in this file as it is, and I'm going to undo everything because we're actually messing up our edit page by doing this. So I'm going to save this and close it. And then right here, instead of rendering, I'm going to paste in everything that was there. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of description and status. And instead of field, I'm going to call this form group. And I think the same thing on actions, form group. And then we'll give this a class of form control. And then I'll give this a class of btn primary. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, so now I don't really care to have name sitting there, actually. And we can say class. We've already got class on here. I want placeholder. Enter task name. Something like that. And now we have a little form here. Now it might be nice if it expanded all the way across, I think. So I'm going to do that really quick. Okay, so I just did a little bit of digging, and it seems like what I want to do actually is, instead of using this inline form, I just want to use an input group. And I had a good example that I just lost. Let's see here. I think, where was I? So we have, like right here, for example, on username. So you have this input group. You have an input group prepend. I think I want to append maybe. So I'm gonna just try this out and play around with it a little bit. Hopefully not take too much time. So I don't want this HTML stuff now. I just want to get rid of that. Here, I want to have input group. Then I'm going to get rid of these two divs, so these two things are in the same thing. Then I'm going to make a div input group append, and then push my button up in there, and let's go see what this does. So that's kind of nice. So it's wide, maybe a little bit too wide actually, but you can see here that, like, on the right side of this, these things are joined at the hip basically. So the left and right have border radiuses, but this middle part is now connected. So I kind of like that. So let's keep going. I don't want to get too hung up on all of this, but I'm trying to make it look pretty good. So now we don't need any of this. So let's get rid of that. Back, maybe I'll put the back button just at the top above the card actually. Let's try that. Just back, and then we'll give it a class of btn light, and let's see what this looks like. I don't really like the btn light for now. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to give it an MB3, see if that does anything. Okay, so kind of okay with that. The grays are clashing just a little bit, so I need to worry about that. Okay, so now what we want to do is link to the tasks. Or not necessarily link to them, we want to iterate through them. So we've got our form ending right here. So let's look at what we want. So right here I want to do an H4, and I want to say tasks, and then below this let's iterate through and print out our tasks. Let's do them in cards actually again. So we'll say at project.tasks.each do task, and then inside of here we'll just add some more cards. And again, let's do maybe H5, and then we'll say task.name, and we'll say p task.description, and then maybe at the top we'll put something like, I think in Bootstrap they have a tag or something like that. What is that called? It's not breadcrumbs. What is it called? Badge. So let's get a badge. So span class badge, and we're gonna style these specific to the color. The color of this will match the status eventually, but for now let's say task.status, and let's go see what we got here. So we've got an empty one, and again this has got to do with the fact that we're initializing a new task and it's not actually saved, so let's go check that out. So what I want to do here is say if task.persisted, and then we'll tab all of this stuff in. Make sure you end. Okay, so now that goes away. One thing I'm going to do here is on my form, let's actually just put all of these things in a div together. Not a div, and we'll say MB4 maybe. And then I'm going to grab all of this stuff, tab it in, paste it in there. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, so that bumps everything down a little bit more nicely. So let's go ahead and hook up everything in here that we need to. So just to kind of wrap up the layout and design of this page. So we really need to have edit and destroy capabilities. We don't really need a show page because it's all going to be pretty well encapsulated inside of this card. So to that effect, let's go up here, let's go down here, and let's copy these two TDs, and inside of our task name, let's do what we've done above. I'm just going to go ahead and paste these here. We're going to fix all this in a sec, don't worry about it, because if you're going, oh my gosh, that's invalid, yeah, it is. So just hold your horses for just a second. So let's paste this inside of the H5, and then again we need to put this task name inside of a span in order to make it its own element and justify it. And then we're going to just create a div with no classes or anything, and let's bump these guys up in there, and then we'll take out these TDs, same thing for the ones at the end. And then finally let's add a class of btn warning and class btn danger. Okay, so that should basically do it for now. So let's go ahead and just eliminate all of this stuff at the bottom, and let's see what we got. So it's not terrible and it's not great looking. It's kind of funky actually. For the moment, the only thing I'm going to do to make any changes here is btn sm, and let's see what other. So that changed this. It's kind of okay, I guess. Alright, so what else do we need to do? Okay, so I started trying to add a little bit of extra data so we can see what this looks like, and we missed one thing. So if we say take out the trash, it's going to give us an error. And what we need to actually do is inside of our form up here, we need to provide where is it? Here. So just right in here we can say f.hidden field, and we need to give it a status because remember the status is required, and I'm going to give it a value of not started. So everything is going to just start off as not started. So let's try to add that again, take out the trash, and let's see what happens here. So now we get take out the trash, and I've got my handy lorem ipsum over here so we can copy some text and paste this in if we edit. So we still haven't styled the edit screen, And I'm not sure I'm going to worry about it in this episode. I might, I don't know, we'll see how far I want to take this. But now we've got a couple of things, so now we can start kind of tinkering with the design a little bit more here. So I think I'm going to start by working on the spacing in and around these cards. And then I'm going to work on some of the wording. Like for example right here, I don't think this should say the not dash started. I think it should say regular not started. Maybe we should have done that differently earlier, but that's okay. We'll fix it. The other thing I want to do, the colors on here look a little bit like we're at a circus or something to me, which is not the vibe I'm going for. So I need to work on that. So let's see what we can do with the spacing. So I think between each of the cards, so first of all, these cards, let's just start by giving them a margin bottom of 3. And let's see what this does. So that's just going to bump that down a little bit. I think that looks good. And honestly, I don't actually know how much this 3 is. This is just a Bootstrap thing. They have MB1, MB2, so on and so forth. You can switch this character right here. So this could be like all margins are 3. You can do MT, ML, MR for top, left, right, and then we are using the MB there. On the span, I'm going to add an MB3 as well. Let's see what that looks like. And then there's something perturbing me about how far down this is, and I believe this is just because we have an MB4 on there. So I'm going to make that an MB2. And so now this looks a little bit better. What I don't like, in actual fact, is that these are in line with the title, and now that I'm seeing it, I kind of think they should be in line with the badge up there. So let's actually do this. Let's come up to the, let's see, where are we? So I'm going to make a div, and I'm going to cut all of this stuff and paste it inside of this div. Then I'm going to put this span right there, and then I'm going to get my buttons, put them in there, and now I don't actually, well, I don't need the span tag technically, but I think that's fine. Let's see what this looks like. So that looks a lot better. So let's change up those colors. So the BTN warning, I think we could just make it a light, and then maybe the danger we can make secondary. So now those are looking kind of washed out, but I'm okay with it for the moment anyway. I'm going to find a different color for that in a second, but let's do that to the ones at the top also. Where was that? Edit, so let's do BTN light and BTN secondary. So now we kind of have a monochrome thing going on here, which I'm not really sure how I feel about just yet. But anyway, so let's go back to our project here. So what I would like to do is change these to be specific colors depending on what the status is. So maybe not started is like a gray, in progress is maybe blue, and complete is green or something like that. So how could we go about doing that? So we need to open up our task. Hit the wrong button there, task. And then what I want to do is let's open up that, and then let's look over at what we have going on in this, where we have the badge. So we have badge primary. Let's do this. Let's do say badge dash task dot badge color or something like that. So that would mean that we have badge dash primary or so on and so forth. So I don't know if I like this or not, but let's keep going with it for now. So we'll just write a method over here, badge color, and then we'll say case status, and then we'll say when not started, we'll say secondary, when in progress, we'll maybe say info, and then when complete, we'll say success or something like that. So let's go see what this looks like. So we'll refresh, and now they're really gray and not started, and now we have this very, very gray look. So if I change this to be in progress, so now it looks like that, and if I change this to be complete, now it looks like that. So that's not too terrible, actually. So I think one thing that's messing with me is actually this background color. So let's go back over to our base CSS thing, and I'm just going to take this away. So now we literally have no custom CSS at the moment. And then in our application.html ERB, the body, I'm going to give a class of BG Light here. So then let's go over to our show page, and this back, let's make this a BTN secondary. So I'm just going to kind of stick with the Bootstrap colors for now, to essentially kind of keep everything looking a little bit uniform. Maybe in a future episode, I'll show you how to overwrite all of the colors. So what I want to do is change this BTN secondary here to BTN dark, and I'm changing that in 2 places. So let's look and see what this looks like. So it's going to take a second to refresh because it's going to recompile some stuff. So that looks a little bit snappier, actually. So I'm going to stick with that. I like that. Okay, so this is looking much better. Maybe the edit actually needs to be like something else, because that's a little bit hidden right there. Maybe we should make that a BTN secondary or something. I think I'm going to leave it alone for now. I think I kind of like that. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is handle the index page up here. So I don't want this text decoration, and I don't really want the color to be blue. So let's see what we can do about that. So let's go to let's close everything except the index page here. So we have this link to project, so on and so forth. So what we might be able to do, let me see if this works. If I do class text decoration none, so this is another Bootstrap class. They have little utility classes for everything. So let me refresh here. So now you can see that when I hover over this, it doesn't have an underline. Then what I want to do is on the card title, first of all, maybe we should make this an H4 just to have a little bit bigger text here. What we could also do is say text dark, and then maybe on the paragraph tag we say class equals text secondary. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so now we have, I don't really care for that H4 size. I'm going to make this a bold. Let's see what this looks like. I made it even bigger. That's not what I wanted to do. H5. Okay, that looks a little more like I like. We also might want to make it where when you hover over this, it gets a different background color or something like that. Potentially, where the whole card gets a background color. Alright, so let's go to our code, and in here inside of the card, so let's make this a project card, and let's open up our base class. So this will be our first actual custom CSS. So we'll say base, not base, project card. And I just really want to do, well, let's do like this. We'll say project card, and I want to transition the background color for 0.5 seconds, and I want to ease, and then I'm going to say and hover background color, and I think it needs to be for Bootstrap F7, F7, F7 is the light gray color. So let's go refresh and try that out. So if I hover, you get this kind of nice little gray going on there. To be totally honest with you though, it's a little bit hard to see, but I think I'm going to leave it for now. So let's add another project. So first of all, while we're here, let's clean up this new projects page. So projects, new. So in here we'll say div, card. Well, let me actually, before I do that, let me actually open up projects index. So it's just the same. So I want to get like the first several things here. So I don't actually need the deflex stuff. I'm not going to have any buttons. But I do want that MB4. Let's just get rid of this link. We'll say new project. Okay, so then we want to render the form and the link to back. I'm going to do what I've done previously. So I'm going to say class btn secondary, and then MB3 like that. So now I just need to close off my div here, divs rather. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Okay, so now we have everything sitting nicely inside of a card. Let's edit the form. So we'll say projects form. I'm going to go ahead and just say form group, and then I'm going to give this a class of form control. Same thing here. Instead of field, we'll have form group. Text area class is form control. And then the actions, I'm not going to worry about that class. And I'm just going to add a class here of btn primary. So let's see what this looks like. So that looks fine, I think. So we'll say project 2, another great project. Okay, create project. You can see our notification showing up there. So now we can see here what it looks like when we have multiple projects. So on the index, which is basically kind of our dashboard for the moment, this card, I'm going to give an MB3. So those look like that, and that's looking a little bit better. So let's go ahead and style a couple more pages and then try to wrap this up. So if I go to the edit project, so now the edit project page looks okay because it's getting most of those Bootstrap styles that we have because we already styled the form bit. But I want to look at projects edit. So what I need to do in here is basically copy the code from new. So I'm going to put it at the bottom and then just kind of replace stuff. So this is the same, this back. I don't really care to have the show in here necessarily. Actually, what I want to happen is back should go to project because there is no way to edit from the project's index anymore. So now we just have back which goes to the project. The form is already being rendered. And then the title here should just say editing project. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's just save this now and see what we get. So if we refresh, now we get the same kind of look. If we click back, we go to the project 1, so on and so forth. Okay, so then probably the last thing we need to do is actually fix up this edit for tasks. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to actually copy all of this again, and we'll say tasks, edit. I'm going to do the same kind of deal, paste this at the bottom. So everything kind of has a back path. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this and replace my project. The one thing though is I want to actually go to the project path. So again, what was I going to before? Yeah, so I can actually leave this exactly the same. I don't even need to do that. I want to link to the project. That's exactly what I want to do. I don't want to show. the form that's being rendered isn't really taking any arguments in this case. So I'm just going to render form, and then editing task is what I want this to say. So let's go and see what this looks like if I refresh. Okay, so now it looks better, but I need to actually go ahead and style. So what I need to style is the form. So I need to go into tasks form, and we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to replace field with form group, and then for each one of these we're going to add a class of form control, and then the submit we're going to give a class of btn primary, and we'll refresh and we'll see what that looks like. So the select actually doesn't get the styling. So let me see if I can figure out what to do about that. So it looks like the Rails form.select requires us to also pass in another option here. We just have to give it an empty hash because we can pass in more settings if we want. So that's the expected fourth argument. So let's refresh this and see what it looks like. So now we get a much cooler looking form. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is go back up to the project's index. And what I would like to have on here is actually a status indicating where we are with this. So like, is it started, not started, so on and so forth. So it's going to look really similar to the tasks down here. But it'll be a little bit different, and we might actually include the percent completion. So let's look and see how we can do that. So first of all, let me close everything down and open up my project's index page. So in the card body, I'm going to do the same thing that I had done before on the project's show, and I'm just going to copy one of these badges. So let's grab this. Now one thing we're going to get into here is we're going to run the risk of making all the pages look so similar that it's hard to tell where you are. So we will come cross that bridge in just a second probably. So let's look at this and see what it looks like though. So we have in progress like that. How do we feel about that? What else could it say? So what I'm kind of thinking is we could do something like div mb3, bump this up in there, and then make another span and say class equals text secondary maybe, and say something like 34% complete. And I want that to be small, I think. So we'll cut that and paste it right in the middle. See what that looks like. Oh, that didn't do what I thought. There we go. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm picturing. So how can we make this a reality? So we need to do a couple of things. We need to write a method. So we'll say again, what do we call this? Project, and we on the other one we'll call it badge color. So I'm going to do the same here. So we'll create a method project.badgeColor. And then here we will create a new method which we will say project status. And there's going to be a little bit of the definition of this, which is potentially going to be debatable on how we should do it, but I'm going to do it in a way that kind of makes sense to me just as a starting point. So we need two methods, badge color and status. So the status, what I want to do is say, okay, if everything is complete, then we want to essentially say it's complete. So we'll say if, how can I do this? I'm going to write it in ugly code and we may clean it up. So if tasks dot all, and then we'll say task, and then we'll say task.complete. So we need to write a method on task, which is complete. So we'll say def complete, and we'll say status is complete. We'll write a couple other methods here. Go ahead and do that. So we know we're going to need an in progress. Status is in progress. And then we'll see not started should be here. So we'll say status is not started. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of utility methods over here. So if the tasks are all complete, we'll say that the status is complete. Else if tasks.any task, so we're going to say task.in progress, we'll say in progress, right? So basically it's saying like, okay, if everything is finished, it's finished. If there's anything in progress, then we're going to say it's in progress. Else we'll just say not started. Okay, for badge color, we can actually copy this method exactly, which, you know, maybe there's a refactoring we can do here, but essentially we're going to utilize exactly the same thinking that we did on, or the code that we did on the other one. So let's check it out and see what we got here. So if I go back and I refresh, so now we get in progress and complete. So what's project 2? Why is that doing that? It's because there's no, that's because there's no tasks. So what we need to do is come over here to project and say return not started if tasks.none. Cool, so now we get something more like we're probably expecting. So now we need to build out this percent complete. So what I want to do here is say, let's make a method. It's going to be called def percent complete. And what we need to do is basically say, okay, how many are the how many tasks do we have that are complete? So we'll say complete tasks equals tasks dot select, and then we'll grab the task and say task dot complete question mark dot count, and then we just need to say complete tasks dot 2f. So we want to convert to a float so that when we do division we don't end up with like integers divided. Like integer division doesn't really work for percentages basically if you want to get a decimal out of it. I'll talk about that some other time, but I'm sure you've seen that before if you've been coding much. So we get the complete tasks to a float divided by tasks.count, right? Then we want to take that and we want to multiply by 100, because this is going to say, okay, let's say that there's 3 tasks and one of them is complete. You're going to get 0.33333, so you want it to say 33%. So then we need to take this and we need to round it. Okay, now we also want to go ahead and just return 0 if tasks.none. So we're going to guard against the case of there being no task, because otherwise we're going to get a divide by 0 error. So now over in our view, let's make this say project.percent complete, and we'll leave that percent sign hanging out right there and just refresh. So we get 0% complete and so on. So let's come back over here and let's add a new task. We'll edit the task, make it complete, and let's go check our home page. So now we get 50% complete and it's in progress. So that's pretty nice. So we might want to actually just add a little bit more info there. So what we could do here is say, okay, so we're going to basically just stay within the same area of text, and I'm just going to add a little note that says how many are complete divided by how many are, so we're going to show people what the division is essentially. So we'll say project.total complete like this, divided by project.total tasks, and then we'll just say tasks like that. Okay, so now you might realize, okay, well, we don't actually have those things. So let's come over here and say, make those methods. So we'll say def total complete, and what I'm going to do is just grab this right here. And now instead of doing this, I can do total complete. Okay, and then down here I can do another method, total tasks, and then we'll do tasks.count, and then we will switch this out and say total tasks. Okay, and now this is it's a really simple little two-line method, and now we should have everything we need. So let's go see what this looks like. So now this is giving us a good deal of information. So when we look at these projects, we can actually get a sense of the size of the project by just glancing. So that's pretty cool. Now this is all really, really simple, but I think it's a good start. You can definitely make arguments that these things aren't sophisticated enough, and that's totally fair. But just bear in mind, I mean, this has been like a little over an hour work session to get something that's pretty decent put together. So I've been going around trying to put in some more realistic data, and I just realized that I made a small error here. So I have one thing that's complete and two other things that are not started. And you can see on the home page it's saying 33% complete and it's not started. So what I want to do is actually in my project here, this is what we need to do is say we want it to be in progress if anything is in progress or complete. So this is a small change, but it's an important one. So now on our home page we're going to get in progress there. So that's just a small fix. So I think that's going to be it for this episode. In the next episode, what we're going to do is add drag and drop sorting so that you can reorder these things how you want. Same thing for the tasks so that you can drag and drop and organize this stuff a little bit better. I don't know if we'll do that for the projects or not. Actually, we might. I don't know. But we'll definitely do it for the tasks. I think that's probably a little bit more important because it's like, you know, you're adding priority. This series, as I said earlier, is setting us up for, or this episode rather, is setting us up for a handful of others. This is going to be a pretty in-depth series. So if you want to get all of it, definitely go check out techmaker.tv. It's where we're posting a lot of in-depth work session kind of stuff in the series. We'll be pulling out some individual kind of interesting things and putting them in episodes on YouTube. But everything over on Techmaker TV should be available if you want the whole thing. But anyway, I think that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it and stuck with me this far, thank you so much. And please give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That helps us out a ton. So with all that said, I'll talk to you next time.